Hey everybody, this is Perch. I want to talk about a moment in comics that I really think hurts the quality of the stories. And I also think this moment does a great job in highlighting one of the biggest problems in comics right now and why so many people are frustrated, complaining, and ultimately walking away from new comics. Things like this crop up weekly, and it's become part of the regular argument among the customers and the fans. It's this panel. Now, I know what you're thinking, that I'm going to talk about LGBTQ themes or maybe politics and comics or social topics, but you'd be wrong. This video actually isn't about any of these things. This is from Harley Quinn, number 18, publishing this year, in fact, this month. In it, Harley Quinn is recruited by Luke Fox on a mission to the moon to prevent Element X from mutating into a threat from the dark multiverse. The line is certainly dumb, but it's not until you stop to think about how we got here that it strikes you how terrible it is. In it, Luke has his arm casually draped across Harley as they're having what looks like a meaningful conversation walking down the hall. Harley has a bit of a very thoughtful expression on her face, and Luke is saying, "See, you can shoot the Joker in the face, but it's much harder to shoot issues like homophobia or systemic racism." He's giving her a bit of a lecture, and she's sitting there clearly absorbed by the serious topic. Except, in 2013, less than 10 years before this comic came out, and in current continuity, DC published Detective Comics number 23.2. I know the point is always ridiculous. In it, Harley Quinn provides handheld game systems to children throughout Gotham. She then, with a cold and calculating expression on her face and zero remorse, proceeds to blow them up, killing hundreds of children in the process. And she's very clear about what she's doing. It's not an accident. It's not like she's trying to get to the parents. She's there to murder children, and she's happy about it. A year later, in Secret Origins number 4, she kills a number of just random people, and throughout her Rebirth series, she casually kills others. And if you go more than 10 years back, you wind up getting a pretty huge body count in the pages of her solo comic, Batman, and other appearances. Harley Quinn is often portrayed as wacky and unstable, but make no mistake about it, she's got one of the higher body counts in Gotham. She murders lots and lots of people. Now, of course, comics has had its fair share of villains getting popular and becoming heroes. And absolutely, DC wants readers to view Harley Quinn as a character like Deadpool, who started somewhat evil but now can be a hero and pop culture icon. They want to sell that merch on Halloween, the slutty Harley Quinn costume. And the fans want that too. Harley is one of DC's most popular newer characters, definitely one of the bigger cosplay targets. People want her to have this progression, and that's fine. It's well and good. And DC is certainly within their rights to make this transition. Characters change all the time. But going from mass murdering hundreds of children 10 years ago to a socially conscious-minded hero that supports LGBTQ and systemic racism, it's a lot to take in. That's a big leap. Because the reality is that for the majority of comic readers, the panel that follows this one should instead have been something more like this. Or this. And certainly not this. This Harley Quinn is, in effect, a completely different character, except she isn't. As we're regularly reminded, everything matters and everything counts in the DC Omniverse. This Harley Quinn is the same one who killed children of all races, genders, and sexual identity, and in fact, you could very easily make an argument that Harley targeted lower-income children in her crimes. Rich, privileged children wouldn't accept or need random game systems showing up by mail and typically wouldn't be wandering around the streets at night when Harley was leaning out of a car, shooting and spraying bullets out into a crowd. The awkwardness and weirdness is that you've got a character who was, and in many ways still is, a villain who is written as being psychotic, often selfish, and certainly entirely immoral, and now is taking part in what feels like Twitter's version of a more you know public service announcement. Comic readers view this as being unnatural to the character in the story, and like the writer is inserting a statement they want to make rather than something authentic or fits the story. If you criticize this, then you're certainly a bigot. You're labeled one of the bad people. But keep in mind, many of the comic readers who don't like panels and stories like this were the exact same people buying the Sandman, Doom Patrol, Invisibles, Authority, Preacher. Why would they be perfectly okay and support those topics 15 to 20 years ago, or maybe even recently in buying back issues, but suddenly not today? That doesn't add up. They just became bigots overnight? So let me prove to you the issue isn't speaking about racism or homophobia here. I want you to imagine this panel, but with Superman instead of Harley. If you're a person who read comics for a long time, then you know that Superman would likely just nod gravely, say something along the lines of, "Violence can't cure the ignorance in people's hearts," or "We inspire people with words, not fists." Readers might still feel it's a PSA-like kind of story, and that the nature of bringing this up in the middle of a superhero book is odd. But if you're being honest with yourself, you know that Superman in this situation, walking next to Luke Fox with his arm casually draped over Superman's shoulder, would have at least felt a lot more authentic. Now imagine it's Batman in this situation. Even there, the Dark Knight, you'd expect a grim grunt. Batman, a character who won't use guns and kill, would fit this situation. Wonder Woman, The Flash? Sure. Yeah, I'm not saying the panel would be perfect or wouldn't still cause eye rolling, but at the very least, you'd have to admit that the character involved would have fit. But in this case, you've got a character that's a psychopath, anti-hero or not, casually strolling down a hall debating social issues. It jars the reader, and it doesn't fit. And I should mention again that this entire comic is about Luke Fox recruiting Harley to go up to the moon to prevent Element X from mutating into a threat from the dark multiverse. He's not sending her into a Klan rally or to defeat a cybernetic David Duke zombie. What this speech has to do with the actual comic and mission is exactly nothing. So you've set up a situation where you have a character who absolutely doesn't fit getting a speech about a topic that doesn't match the comic. Everything here is unauthentic, and that's the problem. Now you may be thinking, hold on, Harley has become an LGBTQ icon, I'm not sure about the racism bit here, and in some comics is in a relationship with Poison Ivy. So it fits, except it doesn't. Harley's identity doesn't change the fact that she's been a murdering psychopath in recent years, and in most cases portrayed as being an unhinged lunatic. Just because someone is bisexual or a lesbian doesn't mean their personality automatically transforms to being someone else in a very specific case. It doesn't mean because she has a relationship with Poison Ivy, she needs to be crammed into constant pride-based moments that have absolutely nothing to do with the story. A panel of her calling Ivy and saying something like, "I've got to go to the moon, but I love you, hope I make it back," that would have fit and would have accomplished many of the same things. Chatting about systemic racism doesn't. The red herring here is making liking or disliking this panel support for LGBTQ or anti-racism, but it has nothing to do with that. Luke Fox discussing animal cruelty and PETA would have been equally strange. Discussing the current financial markets and the impact on inflation and new housing would have also been strange. The moment is the writer wanting to make a statement that they are personally passionate about in a place that it doesn't remotely fit, but they shove it in anyway. And any following panel that doesn't include Harley randomly shooting Luke and others in the room is unauthentic. This is about characters and stories that remove who they are and simply insert talking points at random. And again, there are a huge number of DC characters who could have been a part of this conversation and it would have been far more normal. But when you take a character that, again, less than 10 years ago, in current continuity, and in comic storytelling time, that's 3 months, casually murdered hundreds of children, and then drop them into situations like this, readers groan. They reject it, and it doesn't fit. And ultimately, the customers and the fans, not feeling connected to the story they're reading, walk away. And that's one of the biggest problems we have today. Thanks for listening.